jury is now entering the courtroom, and let me just bring you all up to speed as to what's been going on inside the courtroom in the last few minutes. So obviously all the players are there. In the aisle, from the aisle, we see the president's family, former president's family, Tiffany, Laura Trump, Eric Trump, and Don Jr. all seated in that order in the row behind him. So a big representation of his family there supporting him. In addition, Susie Wiles, who helped run his campaign, and Alina Habba, his attorney for other cases. Right now, Todd Blanche, the attorney, the defense attorney for Mr. Trump, said he expects to go 2.5 hours for his summary, for his closing arguments, and he goes first. Joshua Steinglass, who is with the prosecutor's office, says he estimates he needs 4 to 4.5 hours. So that's about 7 hours total, assuming they keep to those parameters. So this is a pretty huge moment.
It is everything. This is showtime. These jurors have not heard much of this evidence for more than almost a week at this point. You also have the judge saying the conclusions are reasonable, logical, and with evidence that you may adopt those inferences and conclusions. So inference is very, very important here because a lot of the case has been circumstantial evidence without having that third man in the room, Allen Weisselberg, with having Michael Cohen with credibility issues as well. But keep in mind, this has been over 4 weeks now, maybe in total. These jurors, from the time they were actually put into this jury box till now, they're going to have to revisit all the very key important moments. It's up to the defense counsel and the prosecution to highlight for them what those important moments are going to be. And the defense now has to front what they think the prosecution will highlight without a chance for rebuttal. They're going to have to choose their bite at the apple very carefully and make sure the jury is riveted. And this will be the time to lean in, to have the emphasis, to have some of the theatrics. You also have the jury being reminded nothing the lawyers say at any time is evidence, so nothing the lawyers say in summations is evidence. They'll have their notebooks, though, the jurors, to remind themselves, and their memory will control.
The defense attorney has started. He tells the jury, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen." He thanks them for their service on the jury. The idea that this is a misdemeanor, falsifying the business records, allegedly, is a misdemeanor, but the fact that it is in service to a different crime, this election interference theory, is a complicated one. And I'm not sure that every American or even every juror, although they're smarter than us, I'm sure at this point, understands exactly how it works. And so the prosecution is going to have to explain it.
What are you looking at me for?
No. You're the forewoman.
You're our complicated
questions, you're our forewoman, and your mom was a judge.
So thank you. So I do want to remind everyone what we've said along. There are 2 lawyers on this jury. We do not know whether they will have an outsized influence. We don't even know whether the other jurors know what everybody does for a living. But if they do know their lawyers, some of this interpretation and explanation may come out. I just go to the end of the day to common sense. And for the question of, this next step, does Donald Trump have a motive? Obviously, we have the defense on here. We don't know the prosecutor, but this happened in October, 2 weeks before the election.
Of 2016.
Of 2016. Donald Trump, there is testimony that he said, "Women will hate me." There is testimony from Stormy Daniels that he didn't care what his wife would think about something like this. There is testimony that he was suggesting, let's wait to pay till after the election because then it won't matter. So my question is, does testimony like that, put together with testimony from friendly witnesses, people like Hope Hicks, Rona Graff, David Pecker, give the jury the common sense to support what the prosecutors say versus what's the defense going to say? Michael Cohen, Michael Cohen, Michael Cohen.
I agree. Or I think one of the points that you were trying to get at is whether or not the jury is going to say, come on, is this really a crime? Is this really, or is any of these 34?
Todd Blanche just said it's as true right now as it was on April 22nd. He's referring to the fact that everybody's paying close attention, and that is that Donald Trump is innocent. President Trump is innocent. He did not commit any crimes, and the district attorney has not met their burden of proof. The evidence is all in. He did not commit any crimes. The district attorney has not met their burden of proof, period. The evidence is all Blanche says. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I'm guessing that after that,
The evidence should leave you wanting more. You should want and expect more than the testimony of Michael Cohen.
Yeah, and this is all going to go along the same lines, which is not only that the prosecution, he's arguing, didn't meet the burden of proof.
You should demand more than the testimony of Keith Davidson, an attorney who really was just trying to extort money from Trump before the election. So yeah, he's introducing this Star Wars cantina scene of witnesses
Right.
that the prosecution has brought out.
People that surrounded Donald Trump, let's
Yeah,
just say. That's
but
why the
I do
prosecution
think-
brought them.
Well, Keith Davidson
This case is
is
about documents. It's a paper
Yeah.
chase. This case is not about an encounter with Stormy Daniels 18 years ago. Before we get to the next one, let me just get the point out that I was trying to make, because this does make it, which is he is going to argue to the jury that this is a prosecution in search of a crime.
We're continuing to monitor what is coming out of the court. Nothing new from our correspondents inside. Just Todd Blanche telling the jury, last we heard, that President Trump has unequivocally denied the encounter, obviously, with Stormy Daniels. Blanche says the jury must decide if Trump had anything to do with how payments to Michael Cohen were accounted for. Paul, you and I were just talking about whether, while the jury is deliberating, whether the former president actually has to remain in the courthouse. Todd Blanche says the bookings were accurate and there was absolutely no intent to defraud.
And this is the crux of the argument, right? The documents were not falsified. So, yeah, we were talking about, well, will Trump be in court while they're deliberating? And I was just informed that he's actually required to be here. So he will be here throughout deliberations.
No matter how long deliberations
Exactly.
take.
As Caitlin reported before, he's already not happy that they're not getting the last word. He's going to be like a caged tiger in there. Look, this courthouse is not nice. We've all been inside of it. Now, the bookings, of course, they're saying were accurate, and there's absolutely no intent to defraud. I think we just covered this, and this is an important point because this is a paperwork case at its core, and they're arguing, look, these were invoices from Michael Cohen's legal services. He was the then president's personal attorney at the time. There is no crime. We're going to hear that repeatedly. But I think it's notable that he's going to be in there for deliberations. He will not, absolutely not, be happy about that because it could go for days.
What we are likely also to hear from Todd Blanche, I mean, him saying that the bookings were accurate and there was no intent to defraud. Really, the person who, for the prosecution, who has spoken to a knowledge of the defraud is Michael Cohen. That is what the prosecution, Blanche says with Cohen's testimony. They were lies, pure and simple, trying to attack Michael Cohen, the only person who can really testify to or did testify to the intent of Donald Trump.
Well, and that's what is clearly going to be a major part of this is Todd Blanche is being his closing argument much shorter than the prosecution is attacking the witnesses that the jury did hear from and also raising questions about the ones that they did not hear from, because it won't make the defense look bad necessarily because the burden of proof is not on them to convince this jury of Trump's innocence. They don't have to put up any defense at all. It's on the prosecution, obviously, to meet that burden of proof. And so right now he is going after Michael Cohen. That's a surprise to no one that is going to be a key staple of Todd Blanche's closing. And they really do think that's one of their most effective arguments. And Blanche is saying that Michael Cohen had key interactions with Dylan Howard, Keith Schiller, and Alan Weisselberg. You'll notice those are three names that we've heard repeatedly during this trial. They have not shown up at this trial. Dylan Howard worked at the National Enquirer. He has some spine issue and is living in Australia. Keith Schiller, obviously, we believe is still in Florida, someone who also left and parted with Trump on good terms from the White House, also wasn't called in this case. And as we know, Alan Weisselberg is in jail.
And Alan Weisselberg also got a quite nice severance agreement.
$2 million.
$2 million.
In condition that he not voluntarily cooperate with any investigation. He would have to be compelled by a subpoena. Obviously, you can't
It is a
ignore that.
remarkable clause in a goodbye contract to give somebody $2 million and say, oh, and by the way, you cannot voluntarily tell the truth in front of a jury unless you are forced to testify.
It says a lot. And obviously, the jury's not going to hear about that agreement. That is something that came up earlier on. And see, there's Blanche saying those are important. Keith Schiller, Dylan Howard, and Alan Weisselberg were not jurors in this trial, or not witnesses in this trial.
Blanche goes on to say, in order to convict, jurors would have to determine there were false entries in the paperwork and that Trump had intent to defraud. And of course, this is really at the heart of the case.
It is, and it's their strongest argument. The idea that Trump was then the leader of the free world. He wasn't paying attention to how things were being invoiced. Remember the testimony from the two accountants, Jeff McConney, Deb Tarasoff. They just said they received these invoices from Michael Cohen. They clicked the boxes, and boom, a check went out. Now, Blanche is saying the invoices were prepared by Cohen. The vouchers were prepared by Trump Organization employee Deb Tarasoff, and the checks were auto-generated. For that testimony from the accountants, even though they were called by the prosecutors, this is their strongest argument. And the danger for Blanche is not diluting this, not getting away from this, because this is the alleged crime. Michael Cohen's credibility also very significant, but he also, earlier at the beginning of his argument, he reminded everyone that Trump denies the encounter with Stormy Daniels. Now, I think for a lot of people that strains credulity. They're also going to argue that this wasn't done to help him win the election. That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to focus on falsifying business records, and that's what he's doing here. The challenge is, again, not to get too distracted with these other things that don't make or break the case and that jurors may not believe.